join as an e-club friend if you're a traditional Rotarian from another club. So just contact one of us about that. This allows you to attend. Of course, the meetings are free to attend. Just come and we'd rather that you join. But if makeups are important to you, there's an opportunity for unlimited makeups and just helping to support a new and struggling club. I don't think we're struggling, but I would just say a new club. And let's see, announcements. You know what? I think this was from last week, and I'm sorry that I didn't pull that out of this week's. So here we go. For next week's speaker, Tom Torfinson. Is it Thorfinson or Torfinson? Are you still muted, Kristen?
Yeah, sorry, Thorfinson.
Thorfinson, okay, who is Chief Strategy Officer for Rotary International in Evanston, talking about the future of Rotary and COVID-19. This should be a really, really great presentation, and I'm glad we are kind of hooked up with Facebook for next week in particular, because I expect quite a few participants. So Tom's a great guy, and from Minnesota originally, a supporter of North Star, so we welcome him next week. This week's speaker is, of course, Emma Mulhern, President of ROTEX, and she'll talk a little bit about her exchange, a little bit about what ROTEX is, and kind of, you know, I'm hoping you speak, Emma, a little bit towards COVID-19, our early returns this year, how you've really interfaced with them and helped support students who have returned early in this really kind of crazy time. So looking forward to that. We had been doing our four-way test at the end of the meeting, but I think we're going to start to do it towards the beginning. We find that depending on the length of a presentation, people start to fall off. So if you will each unmute yourselves, and we can say this together. So the Rotary four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. Is it the truth?
Is it fair to all concerned?
Will
Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
I have to just share a personal little item about number 2. Is it fair to all concerned? In a business dealing this week, I was responding to an email about something, and I just used the line, you know, I just want to make sure it's fair to all concerned. And I think it's just a reminder to me personally, as well as others, about the, you know, the foundational aspects of Rotary that have been around for over 100 years, and how you live your life by these 4 items, and, you know, only good can come is the way that I look at it. So here we go, back to Emma. Emma, I will stop sharing, and I think you have a PowerPoint that you can share. And so glad again that you are here.
Okay, here we go. So yes, I'm Emma. I am the current North Star ROTEX President. I went on exchange to Finland 2015-2016 through the North Star Rotary Youth Exchange Program. And I'm here to talk to you today about ROTEX, and so let's get started. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Youth Exchange Program and what that is. I know a lot of you are familiar with it, but just to make sure we cover all the bases. Then talk about North Star ROTEX, who we are, what we do. Then looking at ROTEX in the bigger picture of ROTEX International. And then looking at ROTEX within Rotary and how Rotarians can support ROTEX. And of course, I have some COVID-19 updates regarding Youth Exchange and ROTEX. So a little bit about the North Star Rotary Youth Exchange Program. It's a very well-respected youth exchange program. It's been around for 50+ years, and we send out about 90 students every year. About 50 to 60 of those are on long-term program, and the rest on short-term programs. This is to more than 30 countries around the world, anything from Taiwan to Argentina to Germany, and it covers districts 5950 and 5960 in Minnesota and Wisconsin. We have our long-term program, which is a 10 to 12 month program for students ages 15 to 19, so anything from a sophomore in high school to a gap year student. And these students go overseas, live with local host families, attend a local high school, and they're really there to learn another language, learn another culture, but also be international representatives for their home country. Then we have our short-term programs, one of them being the family-to-family exchange, which is a 2-month program, 1 month being overseas. So a student is paired with a student in another country. Let's take Taiwan, for example. They are paired with a student. The student will go over to Taiwan for a month, live with that family for a month, and then their match will come back with them for a month to live in Minnesota or Wisconsin. And this is a summer short-term program. We also have international camps, which are anything from 1 to 3 weeks long, and they are themed experiences overseas. So they could be a nature camp. There's one in Taiwan where they bike around the entire island of Taiwan. And these are also summer programs, the difference being they do accept older students up to possibly 25 years of age. Again, you probably are familiar with these terms, but just to cover them, some terms to know with youth exchange. First, we have candidate, and these are the students that have applied and been accepted to the program. They are preparing to go out on exchange. Then we have outbound, which is sometimes used for candidate, but for North Star, typically we use it for students that have left the country and they are now overseas on exchange. Inbound student is someone that comes into your district from exchange. So if we take an example of a student going from North Star to Finland on exchange, from Finland's perspective, they are an inbound student. They have come into Finland for an exchange year. And then we have rebound students, and these are the students that have gone on exchange and have returned. Next, we have sponsor club, which would be the club in our case in the US that is sponsoring any outgoing students. Then we have the host club, which is the club in the host country that helps to take care of the student, making sure they're enrolled in school and finding host families, that sort of thing. We have the YEO, which is the youth exchange officer, and they're really in charge of taking care of some of those more technical things, like with school and finding host families for the student. And then we have a counselor, which is someone within the club that helps to support the student more on an emotional level. A little bit about my exchange in Finland. As I mentioned, I was an exchange student in Finland in 2015-2016. And I wanted to go to Finland on exchange because I wanted to play hockey. And I knew they liked hockey in Finland, so I put it down as a country on my list. And I wanted to become an exchange student because both of my parents had been exchange students, my brother, 2 of my aunts, all through Rotary. So I guess you could say it's kind of a family tradition in a sense, but I was placed in a very small town in rural farmland country of Finland, which is very different for someone like me who is from the big city of St. Paul. But I really enjoyed the experience because I not only was in a different country, but I was in a small town. I did get to play hockey. There is that picture there on the right. We actually had a St. Paul Rotarian who worked for the Minnesota Wild, and he was able to send us some Minnesota Wild t-shirts, some signatures from Finnish hockey players, and my hockey team was very, very excited. I also got the opportunity to, of course, learn Finnish and make friends within the local community. So really, I would say I learned a lot from the experience, and it was a very transformative experience, not only learning a different culture, but gaining a different worldview. So now that I've gone on exchange and I've learned so much, now what? I mean, I don't think, it's very difficult to just go back to the way things were. I've learned so much, I've evolved as a person, so now what? And that's really where ROTEX comes into the picture. So who are ROTEX? Well, they are former long-term Rotary Youth Exchange Program participants, and they're typically high school to college-age students. So they're students that have come back from their year abroad, and they're typically anything from a high school junior, senior, to a college senior. And how students become a ROTEX is they attend a North Star overnight event, whether that's Halloween weekend or winter weekend, that sort of thing, or 1 year after they're returning from the exchange year, they are automatically considered a ROTEX. So now what is ROTEX? And really, I see sort of 2 main pillars of what ROTEX is. One being, of course, we are a service organization, just like everything else within Rotary. But most importantly, we are a community of people that understand each other and have a shared experience. So first, I want to talk about how we are a service organization. We do a lot of different service throughout the year. And first, I want to talk about service with inbounds. So the students that are spending the year here in Minnesota. when these students first arrive in August or around mid to late August, they've been here for a few weeks, they start going to school, and then in September we hold inbound orientation. And this is the opportunity for us to, of course, go over the rules with them, making sure they know what life in Minnesota will be like, but also talking about culture shock and what an exchange year will look like. So North Star Rotary Youth Exchange hosts this event, and ROTEX help out throughout the entire event. So we're helping to get inbounds where they need to be, but also serving as cultural translators, being able to give them advice about life in Minnesota, and also serving as literal translators because some of them don't quite have the language skills yet. They've just gotten here and they maybe don't know exactly what's going on. So we help in a lot of different ways at this event. Then we have Halloween weekend, which is in October of every year, where the inbounds get together. We go on a hike, we carve pumpkins, we have a costume party. It's very, very fun. And ROTEX are there to really facilitate and help North Star Rotary Youth Exchange. So we help the students carve the pumpkins, which many of them, of course, have not done. So making sure they know how to do it properly. But also, of course, supervising and having an opportunity to check in with them to see how they're doing, especially because the fall can be a lot more rough for students as they're still adapting to life in Minnesota or Wisconsin. Then we have in December the country fair. So students, when they apply, they get sent off to district interviews, and after they do their interview, they go to what is called the country fair. So that is essentially, you can think of sort of a science fair setup, but for countries. So each inbound student promotes their country. So they say, Argentina is the best, you should come here, or Thailand, it doesn't get cold like it does here in Minnesota, so you should come there. And our job as ROTEX is to help really keep the flow of people going, because there are a lot of people at this event, but also making sure that inbounds know what to do, and they're keeping track of everything that they need to sort of have ready for that day. And then typically in June, we hold farewell weekend, which is sort of a last hurrah for these students to get together, reflect on their exchange year in Minnesota, and then we also talk to them about things like culture shock and reintegration in their home countries. So these are some of the events we help out with inbound students. Next, we have candidates. So these are students that are going out on exchange, and ROTEX helps at all of these events throughout the spring. There are 3 candidate orientations, and ROTEX are really good resources because we were once in their shoes. We've been on exchange, we know what it's like to prepare, to have to struggle with the language, what good resources are, and how to prepare. So we have different sessions that we help with, one of them being the culture shock pool noodle presentation, I don't know what you want to call it, where we create the culture shock curve of ups and downs with a pool noodle, and we talk about the different things involved in it, talk about our own experiences, because really an asset of having ROTEX is we have been there and we have those personal experiences to share with these students to help prepare them for their exchange year. And then we have, of course, service with rebounds. So these are the students that have come back from exchange. In August of every year, we hold Rebound Weekend, which is an opportunity for these rebound students to get together, really connect with other rebounds, connect with people who have gone on exchange, but also giving them the opportunity to reflect on what did they learn from exchange, what did they gain from it, how are they different, how have they evolved, and how to reintegrate, how to go back to high school, how to go off to college, how to live with your parents again. All of these different things to think about. And as ROTEX, we have gone through reverse culture shock and reintegration, so we're able to really provide good advice about what it's like and help prepare them, because for many students, reverse culture shock is more difficult than initial culture shock when they go on exchange. So now that we've talked about how North Star ROTEX is a service organization, I want to talk about how we are a community. So one of the things that I think is different about ROTEX compared to other organizations in Rotary is we all have the shared experience. We've all gone on exchange for a year. Yes, we went to different countries, but we know what it's like to have to make friends, have to learn another language, have to follow your hostess around because you don't really know what's going on, and how to have to essentially build a life for yourself overseas, right? So I think we understand each other because of that. Regardless of when you went, if you went 40 years ago, like my parents, I can still share stories and we can see similarities in our experiences. And because of that, we're a support system because we know what it's like to go on exchange, to come back, to reintegrate. So we can support students that are reintegrating back into life here, or just supporting ROTEX as they figure out still what this exchange means to them and what they want to do with it in their future life and future career. So because of this, we hold different, in order to really facilitate this, I should say, we have different social events throughout the year. We've gone swimming, we've done bowling, we have done a candlelight hike in the winter time. Just really think different things for us to get together, bond, and strengthen that community of ROTEX. Twice a year, we also hold the ROTEX All Ages Get Together, which, as you can guess, is a get together of ROTEX of all ages. And this picture actually on this slide was from last August, and we had about 40 people attend the event of all ages. And it really, I think, shows the brevity, how big our ROTEX community is, and regardless of when you went. For me personally, I have been involved in ROTEX ever since I got back from exchange. My parents were involved in ROTEX, I actually met through ROTEX, and my brother was involved, and so I really wanted to get involved and help out. And I've really enjoyed, I think, of course, helping the inbound students and helping them to carve pumpkins and thinking about life in Minnesota. But I've really enjoyed mentoring students, candidates going out on exchange, and seeing that whole process of mentoring them before they go out on exchange for a year, and then they come back and they get involved as a ROTEX. And that's a really, really cool process to see them develop as a young person. I've also been involved with things like NIAN. I went last year to Denver, and that was very cool to meet with ROTEX from around the country and see how they do things, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and see that we're not the only ones doing things a certain way, or learn something from them in the process. And building on that sort of mentoring these students and seeing that whole process, this picture on the right here is a student from Minnesota that was going on exchange. She went on exchange to Finland 1819, and I was actually visiting Finland the summer of 2018. So after mentoring her throughout the entire spring, getting to know her, I went to the airport to surprise her when she arrived. So that was very cool to kind of see her and say, welcome to Finland, and see her off on her exchange year. So it's really provided a lot of cool opportunities for me. So now that we've talked about Rotary Youth Exchange and North Star ROTEX, let's look at ROTEX in the bigger picture. So like Rotary International, there is a ROTEX International. So their job is to really promote and connect ROTEX around the world and support the development of ROTEX clubs, as they call them, ROTEX groups, whatever you'd like to say, really promoting and developing ROTEX around the world. I'd say the one thing that's different in comparison to Rotary International is it's much, much younger. It's 10 years old, if even that. It's a very new organization, and they're still really trying to develop and figure out what they exactly want to do and what their goals are and should be. But some of the things that they have been doing, they just had ROTEX Week actually this week for 2020, but in 2019, they started ROTEX Week, which is where ROTEX groups around the world, they post on their social media, Instagram, Facebook, showing what they do, going on a theme for the day. So in 2019, they had different themes of, they had Rebound Day, Inbound Day, Outbound Day, ROTEX Day, that sort of thing. And so ROTEX groups around the world would post a picture, and then they would post the best one to share with everyone. And this is actually a picture that I helped post for Rebound Day, and ROTEX International picked it up and posted it. That was very cool to see. It's an activity we have the Rebounds do where they write thank you notes at Rebound Weekend to really reflect on their exchange year and being grateful for the experiences that they had and the people that they met. So it's very cool to see that not only what other groups were doing, but that we are doing something impactful and having perhaps other ROTEX or Rotary Youth Exchange programs integrate this idea into their programs. They also hold a ROTEX International Convention every 2 years. They're going to have it this year, but of course has been postponed to August 5th to 8th of 2021. And it's really an opportunity for ROTEX around the world to get together, think about how to improve that our programs, how to better strengthen our ROTEX clubs, how to really strengthen that ROTEX community around the world too. And Rotarians, of course, are welcome. It's not just limited to ROTEX, so this is something perhaps to think about. Now I want to talk about ROTEX and where that fits in within the big picture of Rotary. So when I think about Rotary, I think about sort of a traditional path, I guess I'll call it, of Rotary. So first you have your Interact, your essentially Rotary for high school students, getting them involved, getting them volunteering, introducing them to Rotary, the Rotary mindset. And then you have ROTERACT, which is essentially Rotary for young adults that are just getting started out in their careers and they need more flexible meeting times, but really the goal is still all about service and giving back to the community. And then of course we have Rotary, which you all know about, but this is sort of the one path that I see with Rotary. When you think about the youth exchange program, I see it on being sort of on a different path. So you go, you apply, you go on exchange, and then you come back and you can hopefully get involved in ROTEX. So really my point with this slide is to say not all ROTEX are going to become Rotarians. Not all ROTEX are going to become involved in ROTERACT. But I think something that, because we've all gone on this experience through Rotary, we have that service mindedness in us. We will likely give back into our community in some form or fashion. So some will get involved in Rotary, like my mom. She's a St. Paul Rotarian right now. But others, like my dad, he's not really involved in Rotary, but he gives back through Boy Scouts in a lot of ways. So I think really just knowing not all of us will become involved as Rotarians, but we will likely give back to our community in some form or fashion. And that's not to say these paths can overlap. So of course, interactors could go on exchange, ROTEX can become involved in ROTERACT, and some will become Rotarians. But really just noticing that differentiation between these two paths. So how can Rotarians support ROTEX? Well, of course, supporting the North Star Rotary Youth Exchange Program in whatever capacity that is, whether it's Rotarians hosting a student or encouraging people to apply, really spreading the word. That's a very important thing to do. And there are a lot of different ways to support, or volunteering as a country officer, doing anything like that. But really supporting the program, because without youth exchange, ROTEX doesn't exist. Secondly, understanding what ROTEX is and spreading the word. I think I've been giving this presentation to quite a few clubs, and many people said they didn't know what ROTEX was before I even gave the presentation. So really spreading the word about who we are to Rotarians, especially if they confuse us for another group in Rotary like ROTERACT, and telling them that no, we're not just a service organization, we are a community, and we've all been on exchange, we have this shared experience. And of course, connect with and get to know ROTEX. Of course, I'm biased, but I think ROTEX are pretty cool. Not only do we have an international experience, but we have so many skills from this experience. We have language skills, intercultural skills. We're adaptable and flexible. And I think Rotarians really have a lot of cool opportunities that I think ROTEX would excel at. So one thing that happened last fall, I don't remember exactly when, was the Rotary Mentor Meetup, where Rotarians, ROTERACtors, and ROTEX got together, had an opportunity to meet and really start a mentoring process. And I think that's a really cool opportunity because, like I said, ROTEX have all these great skills that honestly, if I were a Rotarian, I would want to hire ROTEX. They have everything you need in a job candidate. And ROTEX are always looking for that internship or that job opportunity, and Rotarians have those connections for us. So really, I think get to know ROTEX because we are pretty cool people. And then, of course, I do want to touch on the COVID-19 impact on youth exchange and on ROTEX. So with youth exchange, most of our outbound students have returned to Minnesota. Maybe it's 7 or 8 are still overseas out of 50, 60 or so. And a little less than half of our inbound students are still in Minnesota. Some of that just because they wanted to stay, but some of them actually can't go back. So thinking about Argentina, how there are no commercial flights, they just can't get back to the country, but don't worry, we are taking care of them. They are in good hands and we're making sure they have a place to stay and they're doing well. For our programs, for our short-term program, we're not having that this summer. They've been postponed to next year, but they are starting to match the pairs for the family-to-family exchange so that they can start connecting and then hopefully go overseas next summer and meet each other. North Star has decided there are going to be no long-term programs for this calendar year. They will decide, if anything, they might do short-term programs in January or exchanges starting in January, but that will be decided at a later date. But for this calendar year, there will be no exchanges, just because of all of the different factors involved, not only the health situation, but economic situation on impact on host families, on Rotary clubs, and it really just didn't seem like the best decision to send kids out. But although we aren't sending kids out on regularly scheduled exchanges for 2020, 2021, North Star is, of course, recruiting for 2021, 2022. So really spreading the word is very important, especially because people might be afraid of going on exchange or not think it is a good idea with the current pandemic. With ROTEX, of course, we are a community, as I said, so really making sure we feel supported during difficult times like these. Some ROTEX were sitting overseas this spring and they had to come back early, so supporting them with not only just having to come back early, but that reintegration process, again, they have to deal with some of that. But especially we've been supporting, as John mentioned earlier, these students that have had to come back early. Most came back in March, but some have come back in April or May, and really, how do we support them? So they not only had to cut their exchange short, but now they're stuck at home all day with their parents and they don't have anything to do. And that can be really challenging. So we've held 3 Zoom meetings with these students to connect with them. We're holding one actually on Sunday. Just really giving them an opportunity to, of course, talk about how they're feeling. ROTEX are able to give them advice, but also just talk about the good times and the fun experiences, because we can share and bond over those experiences. We're still hoping to hold Rebound Weekend in August, but of course there's a lot of uncertainty around that. If we need to hold it online, then we will do so. But really, despite all these negative impacts, I think we've seen also the positive side of this in a way that it's because we're taken out of the normal of what we do every day. We see things that we can improve on and things we can change, and we see it as a time to evolve and improve ourselves. So some of the things that we've been doing is we are going to start accepting ROTEX leadership applications next week, and we've added a new social media officer position, really reflecting on those roles and what we've done. I've also been working on with another ROTEX during all this extra time I have a country-specific resource guide, so providing resources for rebounds and candidates about the Romanian American Association, if they want to exchange to Romania here in Minnesota, and giving those resources in one easy place so that they know about all these good opportunities. And something that I'll be hopefully posting around about in the next month in our ROTEX group is 50 Years of ROTEX Photo Project. I've been running our Instagram page, and something that kind of realized is North Star ROTEX is turning 50 years old officially next year. So how can we celebrate that? And I think a cool idea that I have is to get photos from all ages of ROTEX, and hopefully one from every year or so, and really show the length and how long we've been around, but how many people have been impacted by ROTEX and by Rotary Youth Exchange. Just some couple of things here. Now that you've heard more and you'd like to see what we're doing, we do have an Instagram account. So feel free to follow us on that, or just go and check out the pictures. And then of course, North Star Rotary Youth Exchange does have their own Facebook page where they post information there. And I just want to wrap this up with this quote, which some of you have probably seen before, but it is a quote from a former Rotary International president that says, "My dream is for every 17-year-old to become a youth exchange student. If we could achieve this, there would be no more wars." And I think I would agree with that, that if you can get students to go on exchange, to learn a different perspective, to see what it's like to speak another language, get to know people from around the world, you really have increased empathy, increased intercultural understanding, and these skills, and this will really help to create a better world. But I think ROTEX builds on that even further. So while these students learn skills of language skills, intercultural skills, ROTEX helps them to become leaders, how to lead a group of 50 exchange students on a hike, how to communicate effectively, how to express what you learned on exchange to employers, any of that. And really, I think youth exchange is so important, and I think ROTEX really complements it so well of helping and supporting all aspects of our program. And with that, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know.
Emma, what a one! I'm going to ask everyone to take themselves off of mute. We can do a round of applause. But while people are doing that, just what a wonderful, wonderful presentation! You are such a great spokesperson for ROTEX and such a leader. We're very, very lucky to have you, and I'm just beyond impressed with the presentation, everything you've done, and going above and beyond, like 50-year photo projects. I hadn't heard about that. I think it's wonderful. So thanks so much. So round of applause. Hi, Stephanie. How are you?
Great, good to see you again.
Good, nice to see you as well. Sam, nice to see you. Aliki is joining us from, Aliki was one of my, I was the country officer from Mexico the year that Aliki was in Prior Lake, stayed with the Perez's, and so joining us from Mexico today, presumably, but with Aliki, you never kind of know. Is he in Mexico? Is he in Prior Lake? Hard to know. Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good, thank you. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hey.
So anyway, so thanks so much. Let's open it up for some questions and for Emma.
Well, I actually have a question for Emma, and this involves all Rotary. So I have a friend who was an exchange student, and now she just got back. Well, she got back like a month ago from Spain. She wasn't doing exchange through Rotary. Now she was doing exchange through her college experience, but she feels like she doesn't have someone to talk to. Can she reach out to the ROTEX people too? Like she is from Minnesota too as well. I mean, and can she like reach out to you guys and see like to join and see what she can do to talk to you and like with other people who was doing exchange during this year and like talk about it because COVID ruined everyone exchange.
Yeah, so true. Thanks, Aliki. Emma, what do you think?
So I don't see why not, but I think the only thing is with the joining part, I think it's really the reason we have with every ROTEX group around the world is different. So some take short-term students and they include them. Some will only do long-term, and I think North Star ROTEX we only take the long-term students. Of course, if they came back early from a year in Brazil, that's fine. But we only take the students that have gone for a year because they really understand it. They're really going for a couple months is very different from going for an entire year. So I think
that shared experience.
That shared experience aspect of it. So I think if your friend is looking for support, sure, I'm more than willing to give it. I think the thing with ROTEX is, at least with our ROTEX, we keep it to our core group of former Rotary Youth Exchange long-term program participants because of that whole community and shared experience aspect.
Yeah, she was actually she is a former Rotary Youth Exchange student.
But then sure, yeah.
Yeah, but she never reached out to ROTEX.
Oh, people are always welcome to join then. Yeah, no, if you've ever gone on exchange through Rotary, oh yeah.
Emma, are you doing, meetups in parks or anything outside maintaining social distancing, or have you guys been completely, Zoom gatherings and whatnot over the past couple of months?
So far, just Zoom. I think we haven't planned anything in person just because of all the restrictions have been changing, and now they're starting to open up, but it's still only limited to groups of 10 to get together. So potentially we could do something. I think the issue is though, if you say, oh, let's go meet in the park, and then 15 people want to come, you have to kind of figure out the logistics of that. So I think we really would like to, and it's just a matter of kind of seeing how the situation evolves. But right now it's via Zoom, and we're having a Zoom ROTEX social in a couple weeks actually. So
great, sounds good. Thank you. Other questions? If you have a question, just take yourself off of mute. Chrisanne, are you off of mute or do you have a question?
Oh, no, I just wanted to say something about short-term exchange. I mean, I'm hoping that North Star will be able to stay nimble. I know that Melanie had to make the decision of not having a full year program for 2021, but both AFS and YFU made that exact same decision before Rotary did. And now AFS is saying, you know what, things are getting better. Maybe we'll do exchanges starting in January, like a semester exchange. YFU has not gone that far, but AFS is staying nimble, and it would be really great if we could stay nimble too.
Yeah, I think they've pushed off a decision about whether or not they'll get any students to go out in January until August, because hopefully then it's really getting closer to that date so we have more information and we're able to make the best decision based on that.
Sure. Your presentation was great. I hope you can go to more Rotary clubs too.
You're
Do
club
it.
number 8, so I've been to quite a few so far.
Good. Keep going. You really present us well. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, thank you.
Emma, are you president this coming year as well? Is it a 2-year term? Is it a 1-year term? How does ROTEX presidency work?
So all of our ROTEX leadership positions are for 1 year. It follows essentially the Rotary year of July to July. And I will not be president next year. We'll be accepting applications from our current board and from anyone else interested in June, actually. And but yes, everything is for 1 year. So last year I was communications officer, and this year I am president.
Very good, thank you.
May,
Paul, do you have a comment? Oh, Karen, go ahead.
well, Emma, I want to thank you so much for your presentation. It was very, very well designed and very informative. I learned a lot. You're an extremely articulate young woman, very impressive. So can you tell us what you're doing in your life right now, and how has the current pandemic affected your circumstance?
Yeah. So of course I've been keeping busy with ROTEX things. So some of these different projects I've mentioned, I've definitely been taking a lot of time working on those. But I think, so I was supposed to work at Concordia Language Villages this summer as a business manager for the Finnish camp. And we are still having camps, but they will be virtually. So really I'm helping to create online content and that sort of thing. That's really how the role has transitioned. But now that I'm here and I have more time because of this online transition for the camp, I am also taking a Swedish class. I've been wanting to learn that for a long time, and really getting out and of course biking and just getting around the neighborhood. So it's given me a lot more time, which has been nice to really just do what I want to do and get those projects done that I've been wanting to work on.
Great, thank you. Paul, did you have a comment?
I had a comment. It was excellent job, Emma. And, you know, your mom kind of forewarned us that how great it was when you presented to St. Paul Rotary. And so I'd love it if you could present to our District Friday feature here in the upcoming months.
Yeah,
just
let me know, and yeah.
Okay, yeah, it'd be great for more clubs. And I saw you were at Blaneham Lake recently, so, but it'd be great just a bigger audience, because I think it's important, and you're right, you know, people don't understand what ROTEX does, and you're such a key component in the exchange, so thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Just let me know the details and I'd be happy to do that.
Very good.
I have a question. First of all, thank you. And I thought it was I'll second all the great compliments. But are you with ROTEX, with your ROTEX group, are you open to include youth exchange students long-term who used to be in a different district, not with North Star?
Yes, definitely we are. If they're from California and they went on exchange to Brazil and now they're going to school at the University of Minnesota and they went through Rotary, definitely they're more than welcome to join us.
That's great.
Thank you.
A question for you on your exchange. One kind of very funny or embarrassing thing that happened to you in Finland.
I mean, there are always lots of little ones. I'm trying to think of what's a good story. I mean, always something just saying a word wrong, but I'm trying to think of an embarrassing story. Well, a funny story, I'll tell a funny story, is one of the things that I like to do in hockey is to, every year that I played, it was to score 1 goal. That was a goal of mine. And with my Finnish hockey team, I hadn't scored a goal, so they let me play forwards. I was a defense. They let me play forwards, and I was really close. I didn't get a goal in that game. I got a goal in another game afterwards, but I remember that I was in front of the net and the other team pushed me into the net, and then I thought it was really funny because my teammates were defending me, like, no, you can't do that. That's our exchange student from like the US, and it was very cool to see that community, and it was a funny story too because I got to make the joke that no, the puck didn't end up in the net, but I did.
I did, right. That's great. Thank you. How many host families did you have?
I had 4. I was going to have 3, but I ended up having 4. And 2 were in town and 2 were outside of town. So one actually had 50 cows, and I learned how to kill flies very quickly.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
How many host brothers and sisters in each of the families?
First family 2, second family 2. These are all the ones that were in the house. Third 2. Oh, they all had 2. Yeah.
And when you say you were in town for 2 and out of town, how big was town?
10,000 people.
Well, it's not too bad.
Yeah.
Could be worse.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we had our high school. It was very different though, because my high school in Finland was 130 students, essentially a hallway. But my high school in the U.S. was 1,300 students. So very different experience
Very
there.
different.
Yeah.
For sure. What part were you? Central Finland, southern, northern?
Like western central Finland, kind of. So a little further north.
Okay. Close to the Swedish border at all, or?
No, but near. I always say the bump of Finland, how it kind of comes down and the bump, like over there. So we did play with my hockey team some Swedish-speaking teams, but not as far north as the Swedish border. Yeah, I did go there once, but yeah.
Got it. Cool.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Yes, Emma, this is Stephanie. It's great to see you. I've known your parents, as you know, forever. And your brother, I think, and Sam, I think you both went the same year as exchange students. I'm remembering, Emma, I think that you were in high school. You missed a year of high school on your exchange. You had not graduated. Is that right?
Yeah, I went for my junior year of high school.
How was it to come back and do your senior year?
So having parents that are ROTEX and having a brother who had come back and they all were like, high school sucks. Going back to high school sucks. So I didn't want to do that. So what I did is I enrolled full time at the University of Minnesota as a PSEO student. And it was very cool because the U of M is one of the few places to teach Finnish. And I actually have a Finnish minor there. And my professor actually was a former Rotary Youth Exchange student to Finland from Minnesota. But I think, of course, I did go back to high school for a few things like National Honor Society meetings, and there's definitely just the culture shock, especially because I had been in a small high school and now there are like thousands of people around me. So that was very different. But I think because I had something different to go back to, because I did PSEO and I had to develop a new routine and I was taking Finnish classes and could integrate my exchange experience, I think it went a lot smoother than if I had just returned to high school in and of itself. Yeah.
Great. Good you took that option. And then Emma, how many ROTEX are there? What's the membership?
Yeah, that's a question I got asked once before. It's a difficult question to answer because it depends on what you considered sort of involved. But I would say we have a ROTEX leadership board, which is we'll say about 10 people. So that's a very strong, very committed group of people. Then we have, I'd say, sort of the core group of ROTEX, which is probably 20, 30 or so that come to lots of the events. They're really involved. But then you have another maybe up to 50 or so that maybe come to an event once in a while, or they come just during the summer because they go to school out of state. But it can be quite a big group. It just depends on how many at what event and how involved people are.
Okay. Are there opportunities for older ROTEX to get involved with ROTEX?
So definitely the all ages get together. That's one thing that we are sure to maintain to connect back with older ROTEX. But I would say, of course, in terms of within ROTEX itself, really, we have our coordinator and assistant coordinator, which are, Brandon isn't that old, but Lisa went on exchange quite a while ago, and she's our coordinator. So that's one way. But I know a lot of ROTEX are involved, former ROTEX, older ROTEX, through just the youth exchange program, whether that's hosting or being a country officer, a youth exchange officer, which my mom also is. Really finding that different way too of how to give back to the youth exchange program.
Yes. Okay. I'm remembering when I also went to the U of M and ROTEX, Chrisanne, was it every month we had a meeting? Every other week? What was it? Is ROTEX still meeting on a regular basis?
The leadership team meets for every event, but I would say really we meet regularly for all of the events that happen, and then we have occasional social events sprinkled in there. So it's not necessarily as regular as maybe like every 2 weeks or something, but it sort of ebbs and flows with the semester and finals and summer break and dealing with that too.
All right, great. Thank you. Thank you for presenting.
Yeah.
Well done.
Emma, I have a quick question.
Oh, go ahead, Naomi.
Thanks for doing that. Great presentation. Well done. You seem to be a huge asset for ROTEX, which is amazing. And ROTEX seems to have come quite a ways since I was involved. Did not know there was a ROTEX International, so that was awesome to learn about. So my question is all about like where you guys get your guidance from. Probably, I mean, you can totally answer, but I'm guessing somewhat from ROTEX International. But then what is the connection, like the direct connection between the North Star Rotary as well? And how does that work?
I guess guidance in terms of what?
Where, like, if you guys need something, where do you go?
Yeah. Yes. So mostly I would say a lot of what we do is in our own. We've been around for so long that I think we have that internal knowledge that we don't necessarily need as much from other resources. Of course, if we're planning events, we work with people in North Star Rotary Youth Exchange and helping with all of that. With some of the newer things with ROTEX International, I know they do a few things. They've encouraged clubs to charter as alumni organizations, and they do provide different guidance on how to start a club. But I think a lot of the guidance that they have is for newer groups and not as well established groups. And because we've been around for so long, we don't necessarily need a lot of that. So I would say a lot of our sort of knowledge is internal, but really we've gotten a lot more active on our Instagram account, and it's been interesting to see what other ROTEX groups do and get inspiration from that. And I think that's a little part of it, but I'd say a lot of it is internal knowledge that we've had from when you were involved, from when my parents were involved, and really building on all of that.
That's amazing. That's an amazing spot to be in. Good work.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. Sam, I was going to call on you to see if you had a question.
Oh, I didn't have a question, but that was a really good, informative presentation. I was involved with ROTEX actually for a little bit when I came back from my exchange. I haven't been involved in a couple years, but yeah, definitely looking forward to getting involved again.
Thank you. Thanks. Well, just really great presentation again. Emma, any final questions at all? It's about 5:27. Thanks so much for joining. It's great to see everybody's faces. Enjoy the semi-sunny weather after a weekend of rain, and we'll see everybody next week. Thanks so much.